What if a single knock on a frozen door could rewrite two lives forever? In the heart of a snowy town, a 15-year-old boy's simple act of kindness unravels a hidden story, a forgotten soul, and a Christmas gift that would change his future forever. But what he finds behind that door isn't just loneliness. It's a secret that will warm your heart and bring tears to your eyes. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from every corner of the world. The sky over Martin's Hill was still the color of pewter when Milo Hawthorne crept from his narrow bedroom, careful not to wake his parents. A thin crust of frost winked on the inside of the window panes, tracing white vines across the glass. He tugged on socks darned at the toes, slipped into his father's old coat, stepped onto the porch where the cold bit like quick teeth. Milo's house sat on a quiet lane, where fences leaned from age and snow swallowed the curbs each winter. Though the cottage was small, just 2 bedrooms and a kitchen, no bigger than a train carrette, overflowed with hard laughter and shared worries. His father, Roland, worked nights at the paper mill and would not be home until sunrise. His mother, Nina, would leave in less than an hour to pour coffee at the only diner that still took coins. In the hush before their long shifts crossed, Milo handled chores so they could rest for a heartbeat longer. He hauled the trash bin across the yard, boots squeaking on the frozen crust. Each exhale rolled from his mouth like gray smoke. To the curb he stopped, ears pricking. Somewhere very faint, he heard a ragged cough. Came from the brick house next door, the house that had once glowed with flower boxes and warm yellow bulbs but now hid behind drawn curtains. Milo turned. The snow on the neighbor's walkway sat untouched, as smooth as icing. Behind the curtains, a single dim lamp fluttered to life, then winked out. He remembered the woman who lived there, Mrs. Evelyn Aldridge. Widowed, 78, fond of handing peppermints to passing children, she had not set foot outside since the leaves dropped. The thought of her alone in that chilled silence tightened, something under Milo's ribs. Still gripping the bin handle, he weighed his choices. He could finish the chore, return to the warm kitchen, and pretend he hadn't heard. Or he could knock, even if it woke a sleeping stranger or drew a scold. The decision felt large for a winter morning, yet clear. Nobody, he believed, should freeze behind a closed door. He planted the trash bin by the road, then marched through knee-high drifts toward the brick steps. Snow filled the porch grooves. No footprints marred the surface. He raised a gloved fist and knocked once. The sound was dull, swallowed by the heavy air. He knocked again, louder. After a long moment, a latch clicked. The door eased open a crack. One pale blue eye peered at him, cautious as a stray cat. The face around it was lined and tired, silver hair pulled back in a loose braid. Yes, the voice was soft but wary. Milo forced his cold lips into a smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Aldridge. I'm Milo, from next door. I heard a cough and wanted to make sure you're all right." The eye blinked, surprised. "It is early," she said, as though the hour itself were an excuse to send him away. Milo shifted his weight. "It's also cold. Your walkway is buried. I could shovel it for you before my mother leaves for work." Her gaze drifted past him to the untouched snow. She hesitated. "That seems like trouble." "It's no trouble," Milo replied. "Shovel's right there on your porch. I can finish before the kettle whistles." Another pause stretched between them, filled only by the distant hum of streetlights. At last she nodded once. "Very well, thank you, Milo." The door clicked shut. Milo grabbed the shovel, metal edge ringing against stone. He set to work, scraping a narrow path from steps to sidewalk, then widened it so a cane or walker could pass without catching. His muscles burned, but a warm resolve spread through his chest, brighter than any stove. Snowflakes glittered under the street lamp, drifting onto his eyelashes. Once he caught sight of the curtain twitching, Mrs. Aldrich watched, though she ducked away when he looked up. 15 minutes later, the path lay clear and sprinkled with sand he borrowed from a bucket. Beside her porch, he knocked again, lighter this time. The door reopened, revealing more of her thin figure, wrapped in 2 cardigans. "All done," Milo said, stepping back so she could see the clean walkway. She looked, then back at him. The lines around her mouth softened a fraction. "You keep your word?" He shrugged, embarrassed. "Would you like me to bring anything from the shop later? Milk? Bread?" Her shoulders rose and fell as if unsure whether to accept help. "I manage, thank you." Milo nodded. "My mom bakes ginger loaves for the market tomorrow. Could I bring one for you? Extra sweet? Good with tea?" For the first time, a fragile smile appeared. "That would be lovely." Milo's cheeks tingled, and not from the cold. "Then I'll see you tomorrow." He turned, but her voice stopped him. "Why would you shovel a stranger's walk?" she asked. He thought a moment. "'Cause nobody should feel like forgotten." "Snow piling up," he said. "It gets harder to move when it's heavy." The door eased shut, yet Milo felt the question linger, hovering like breath in cold air. He trotted back to his porch, stamping ice from his soles, Nina coat buttoned, and hair tucked under a knitted cap. Met him at the threshold. "You were gone a while," she said, brow faintly. "Sure." Milo peeled off his gloves. Our neighbor's path was buried. She seemed lonely. Nina's eyes softened, tired yet bright. "That was kind of you." Milo reached for the kettle, now whistling on the stove. Steam fogged the window, erasing the frost patterns. "Maybe we could invite her for dinner one night," he suggested. Almost shy, Nina considered, then nodded. "We will make room." Outside, the eastern sky lightened to silvery blue. Two houses, once divided by silence and snow, now shared a narrow ribbon of cleared ground. A first bridge built with nothing more than a shovel and a boy's stubborn lightness. Snow began falling again the very next afternoon, soft and steady, like someone emptying a pillowcase of feathers over Martin's Hill. Milo Hawthorne zipped his coat, cradling his mother's fresh ginger loaf in his arms, the way a mail carrier guards a fragile parcel. The loaf was still warm, its smell of cloves, and brown sugar floating up through the foil. Each breath he took turned to mist, but his steps felt light as he crossed the narrow strip of cleared ground to Mrs. Evelyn Aldridge's front door. He knocked twice. This time the door opened almost at once, as though she had been waiting. Old woman's face looked less wary today, yet dark rings sat beneath her eyes. "Well, if it isn't Milo," she said, her voice raspy but kind. "Come in before the loaf freezes." She stepped aside, and the boy slipped inside. Catching his breath when the cold air met his cheeks, the house felt little warmer than the porch. A lone space heater glowed by an armchair, buzzing like an insect, but Milo could see his own breath. He handed over the ginger loaf. Mrs. Aldridge hugged it close, absorbing its heat. "My furnace went on strike weeks ago," she admitted, rubbing her hands over the foil as if over a campfire. "I keep telling it, there's no pension for old heaters, but it won't listen." Milo squatted beside the nearest floor vent. No warm air stirred. He pictured his father sliding under factory machines, fixing gears out of nothing more than stubborn pride. "My dad could take a look," he said. "He knows boilers and belts better than anyone in town." Mrs. Aldridge shook her head gently. "Dear boy, I cannot afford another repair bill." Milo straightened. "He would never charge you? You might accept a slice of this loaf, though." The woman's lips curved, but worry clouded her pale eyes. To ease the moment, she motioned toward the staircase. "Since you have quick hands, maybe you could help an old librarian face her attic." Milo's curiosity sparked. "In the attic? I'm game." She led the way up narrow steps that squeaked under their combined weight. The attic door groaned open, releasing a puff of dust that danced in the cold light of a single bulb. Boxers stood in crooked towers, each labeled. In fading ink, winter, holidays, David's records, photographs. The air smelled of cedar and old paper. While Mrs. Aldridge sat on the top step catching her breath, Milo walked among the stacks like an explorer mapping an ancient city. He chose a box marked Christmas, slid it forward, and lifted the lid. Inside rested tangled colored lights, hand-stitched stockings, and a carved wooden angel missing one wing. "My husband loved December," Mrs. Aldridge said, her voice drifting like cobwebs. "He would whistle carols before the first snowflake fell. That angel was his favorite ornament, even broken." She reached out but stopped, as if touching the past might sting. Milo turned the little figure in his palm. The broken wing looked clean, almost hopeful. "I have wood glue at home," he said quietly. "May I mend it?" Tears glimmered, though she blinked them away. "You are a kind soul, Milo Hawthorne." Encouraged, he opened another box, this one of photographs. A younger Evelyn laughed on a beach, salt wind lifting her hair. In another picture, she twirled in a cramped library aisle, books stacked like towers around her. As she spoke of summer picnics and late-night jazz, color returned to her cheeks. As if the memories themselves warmed her, snow battered the roof. Harder now, drumming a new urgency. Milo checked his phone. Town alerts predicted a blizzard overnight. If the furnace stayed silent, the house would turn to a freezer. He imagined Mrs. Aldridge wrapped in only the flickering heat of that small space heater. The thought clawed at him. "My dad finishes at the mill by 6, he said. "We'll bring tools, and we'll bring determination." Mrs. Aldridge opened her mouth to argue, then closed it, recognition dawning that some storms cannot be faced alone. "You and your family have already done more than enough." Milo lifted the broken wing angel, holding it like proof that broken things can be made whole. "Let us help," he said, steady and simple. "And, there's something else." He swallowed, heartbeat thudding. Milo watched emotions ripple across her face, surprise, fear, longing like sunlight moving under clouds. "I have not sat at a Christmas table since David passed," she whispered. "I worry I might bring sadness with me." Milo shook his head. "Sadness is smaller when shared," he said. "Plus, my dad's jokes are worse than any gloom." A rusty laugh escaped her throat. Snow hammered louder, reminding them time was short. Mrs. Aldridge drew a shaky breath.
"All right, Milo."
"If your parents truly don't mind, I will come." Relief flooded him. "They'll be delighted," he promised. He returned lids to boxes, then offered an arm to guide her down the stairs. In the hallway, the space heater hummed on, but the house still shivered. Before leaving, he positioned the ginger loaf on the kitchen counter. "Slice it thick," he advised. "My mom says sweetness is better in generous portions." At the door, he pulled on his mittens. "See you this evening with my dad and his trusty wrench." Outside, wind howled, flinging stinging ice against his cheeks, but heat surged in his chest. He pictured the furnace roaring back to life, the attic boxes neatly stacked. As he trudged home, snow already buried his earlier footprints, but Milo felt certain new paths would appear, paths of warmth. Christmas evening slipped over Martin's Hill like a velvet curtain, turning every rooftop silver blue. In the Hawthorne cottage, yellow lamplight pushed back the winter dark, and the smell of roasted chicken curled through each narrow room. Mismatched plates formed a crooked circle, each one waiting for a story to land upon it. Moved between stove and sink with calm purpose. Her apron was dusted in flour, though she had wiped it twice already. Pots clinked, butter hissed. The old oven door creaked like a stage prop. Above the noise, she could hear her husband humming Jingle Bells, hopelessly off-key. Every so often she paused to stare at the extra place setting, nervous that something might still chase their guest away at the last minute. In the corner, Roland wrestled with a string of paper stars that Milo and his classmates had made years earlier. The stars would not stay straight, and Roland's patience was thin. With each failure, he invented a fresh pun, determined to debut the world's worst joke collection before dessert. Milo, kneeling beside the tree, grimaced at every punchline, but secretly hoped the laughter would help Mrs. Aldridge feel safe. Milo's heart thumped as 5 o'clock crept closer. In his pocket lay the wooden angel he had repaired. Its once broken wing now glued in painted gold. Tiny specks of glitter clung to his fingertips. Roland grabbed his scarf, gave Nina a stage wink, and beckoned Milo into the cold.
Out.
The street outside lay silent under a new layer of snow, soft as sifted sugar. Lights glowed in far windows, yet no sound reached them but the crunch of their boots. When they reached the brick house, Milo tapped gently. The door opened at once. Mrs. Evelyn Aldridge stood framed in warm lamplight, a neat burgundy coat hugging her small frame. A knit hat perched on her silver hair, and a shy smile bent her mouth. "Good evening, Milo, Roland," she said, as if tasting each name to be sure it was real. Her eyes glimmered with something equal parts hope and fear. Roland offered his arm like a gentleman from an old film. "The carriage awaits," he joked. She laughed, the sound thin but genuine, and took his arm. In her other hand she carried a cloth bag whose contents clicked softly. Milo wondered what secret gift might hide there. They walked back slowly, snow squeaking underfoot. Halfway, wind gusted and sprayed them with powder. Roland shielded Mrs. Aldridge, but Milo noticed she leaned into the cold, as if eager at last to feel the world. By the time they reached the cottage, her cheeks were pink, her eyes bright as ice on a pond. "Welcome, Mrs. Aldridge," she said, guiding the older woman inside. "What a cozy room, Mrs." Aldridge whispered, gazing at paper stars, popcorn garlands, and the little spruce trees smothered in homemade ornaments. Milo's stomach flipped with pride. They gathered near the fire where mugs of hot cider waited. Roland raised his eye level. "A toast," he announced. "May tonight be warmer than the weather forecast?" Nina groaned. Mrs. Aldridge grinned. Milo rolled his eyes and drank. Conversation started small, how the mill was running, how the diner stayed open through the storm, but soon stories spilled like marbles on a floor. Mrs. Aldridge spoke of nights long ago when her husband strummed an out-of-tune guitar beside that same brick fireplace. Roland answered with tales of factory mishaps that ended in laughter rather than lawsuits. Each story dusted the room with comfort like sugar, shaken on a pie crust. Dinner followed. Chicken browned in butter, potatoes mashed until cloud-light, carrots cooked sweet with honey. Steam fogged the window panes. They ate slowly, savoring more than flavors. Roland unleashed a new pun between every bite, each greeted by groans or giggles. Mrs. Aldridge laughed hardest, once clutching her chest as if the joy surprised her ribs. After dishes were cleared but before dessert, Milo stood, heart banging like a drum in a parade. He reached into his pocket and drew out the angel. The candlelight caught the gold wing. "Mrs. Aldridge," he said, voice wobbling, "I fixed your ornament. I thought maybe your tree might want it back." She took the angel with trembling hands. Tears welled but did not fall. "David carved this on our first Christmas," she murmured. "I feared it would never fly again." In that silence, Roland moved to the record player. From a sleeve discovered in the attic, he slid a vinyl disc and set the needle. A slow trumpet rose, smoky and smooth. Mrs. Aldridge's eyes widened. "Our song," she breathed. Milo, cheeks hot, extended a hand. "May I?" She nodded. They shuffled across the worn rug while trumpet and piano whispered memories. Nina watched, hand pressed to her mouth, tears glistening. Roland, standing by the player, mouthed the tune with quiet respect. When the song ended, Mrs. Aldridge pressed something into Milo's palm, folded envelope sealed with plain tape. "Not for tonight," she whispered, "for when the snow melts." Before he could ask, she tucked the cloth bag under her chair and changed the subject. Who was ready for pie? Dessert arrived, thick slices of apple pie crowned with melting butter. Laughter filled the corners like bright confetti. A letter? A secret map? He shoved curiosity aside. Determined not to spoil the night, hours slipped by. "This has been the warmest Christmas in memory," she said. "I fear I shall float home on happiness alone." Roland and Nina wrapped her in a spare scarf before escorting her to the porch. Snow had stopped, leaving a moonlit world, every branch traced in silver. Milo walked at her side, clutching the envelope in his pocket, feeling its weight like the first line of a new chapter. At her door she turned, taking his hands. "You and your family stitched a torn seam in my heart," she said. "Promise me you'll keep mending the world." "I promise," he answered, voice husky. She stepped inside, but before closing the door she offered a final smile, small and bright as the angel's wing, and sensed that something large and unseen had shifted like ice cracking just before a river begins to run. He hurried home, envelope safe in his coat, head buzzing with questions. Behind him, in the quiet street, a single window in the brick house glowed soft gold. As if a warm hand now cupped the frost from within, Snow kept its promise that night, layering Martin's Hill in quiet white until every garden wall looked the same. Curiosity finally won. He unfolded it slowly, fingers trembling as though the paper might crumble. Inside lay a neat letter and a modest check, both smelling faintly of cedar and old perfume. The note began, "Dear Milo, courage grows when shared," and went on to thank him for giving an old woman reasons to believe in mornings again. The check, for $500, was marked for dreams yet unnamed. In her hands she carried a brown parcel tied with green yarn. Roland ushered her into the warm living room, where the repaired furnace hummed and a pot of stew bubbled. She refused the offered armchair, and instead asked everyone to gather at the dining table, as though about to read a story aloud. With delicate care, she placed the parcel in the center, untied the yarn, and pushed it toward Nina. Inside were 2 thick envelopes and a handwritten letter addressed to the Hawthorne family, guardians of light. Nina opened the letter while Roland, Milo, and Mrs. Aldridge listened. The words, penned in careful loops, spilled gratitude onto the table. Gratitude for warmth, for laughter, for a Christmas that brought her back from the lonely edge. Then came the gifts. One envelope held a check for $10,000 made out to Milo, a seed for college. The second contained $2,000 for Roland and Nina. Payment, Evelyn wrote, for teaching kindness without fee. Roland tried to protest, voice rough, but Mrs. Aldridge raised a gentle palm. "Money unused is like music unheard," she said. "Let it play somewhere worthy." Milo's cheeks flushed hot. He promised to turn the gift into something bright. Nina pressed the older woman's hands, silently accepting, tears shining. The check was placed in a jar on the mantel, not for spending yet, but for dreaming in plain sight. January winds howled, yet inside both houses a different season began. Milo visited daily, bringing library books and stories from school. Mrs. Aldridge joined a knitting club at the community hall, her laugh now easy, her step sure. She carried a thermos of cocoa and told anyone who listened that hope can be passed across porches like bread. Roland fixed her fence. Nina taught her how to bake ginger loaves of her own. Every good deed circled back as conversation, stitching their lives together. Years unfolded like pages. Milo studied harder than ever, fueled by the tidy numbers in the college jar and by Evelyn's faith, which arrived whenever doubt tried to settle. Paperwork, scholarships, late-night essays, all seemed lighter with her letter tucked inside his school binder. The day the acceptance email blinked on his phone, he ran straight to the brick house, snow flurries twirling around him. Evelyn opened the door even before he knocked, as though she had felt the joy through the walls. Social work at Riverside. University, Milo gasped, breath steaming. Evelyn pressed both hands to her mouth, then laughed into the cold air. "I knew the world would need you," she whispered. That summer, the community held a potluck to celebrate. Neighbors brought casseroles and folded cash into a jar labeled Milo's Mile. The jar overflowed, living proof that generosity inspires more of itself. College seasons rushed by, thick textbooks, counseling internships, midnight coffee, runs. Yet Milo returned to Martin's Hill during every break, while sitting with Evelyn by her fireplace, listening to jazz crackle over old speakers. She framed his certificates, displaying them like rare art. Each time he asked why she believed in him so fiercely, she tapped her chest and said, "Because some lights you see only once, and you guard them." One soft April morning, while Milo prepared for final exams, a call reached him. Evelyn had passed away peacefully in her sleep, a novel closed at last page. The news folded him in sorrow, yet beneath the ache he sensed calm, like snow falling on water. He hurried home, where Nina placed a small box in his hands, Evelyn's last gift, found atop her desk. Inside was the wooden angel, its golden wing, glinting, and a note. "Dear Milo, if you read this, I have stepped beyond winter's edge. Do not grieve long. My footsteps are now everywhere snow melts. Keep planting gentle revolution, small acts that topple big walls. Love loudly even. In whispers, your friend Evelyn." The funeral filled the town library. Sunlight slanted across rows of books as Milo spoke, voice steady. She believed strangers could be family, and that belief still walks among us. After the service, he carried the angel to the community center where he now interned. With careful hands, he hung it on a young spruce, standing by the entrance. A tree meant for wishes. Children gathered, eyes round. One asked why the angel's wings shined differently. Milo knelt and said, because someone mended it and mended hearts too. Seasons turned again. Diploma in hand, Milo became the center's full-time counselor. He guided frightened parents, lonely teenagers, and elders, reminding them they were seen. On his office wall rested 2 frames, Evelyn's first letter and her final note, side by side like bookends. Whenever worry pressed close, he read the lines about gentle revolutions and felt snowflakes melt inside his chest. One December evening, exactly 5 years after that first shoveled path, Martin's Hill held a tree-lighting ceremony outside the center. Townsfolk gathered, scarves bright under string lights. As the countdown ended, Milo stepped forward and placed the repaired angel atop the tallest branch. The crowd hushed. The ornament caught the new lights and threw soft gold across fresh snow. In that glow, Milo saw Roland's proud grin, Nina's shining eyes, and traces of Evelyn in every smiling face. The moment felt quiet yet vast, like the pause before dawn. Milo whispered into the winter air, promise kept. Snow began to fall light, gentle, unafraid of melting, carrying her legacy forward. 1 flake at a time across every roof in Martin's Hill.